My work with death and dying really started in Majdanek, in a concentration camp after the war. And I was very impressed how very young children in that place, thousands of children were killed, how they not only were aware of their own impending death, but used drawings or poetry to talk about what it's like to be so young and to have to die. To me, drawings, children's drawings especially, and poetry are one of the most beautiful ways of expressing all the feelings that you have that you could never say in any other words. I would like to read you some of these poems. I'm working with parents also of dying children, and I think we just don't give them enough help. Parents who have a child who is dying, that's one of the most difficult things in the world to face. Also, the siblings of dying children are terribly neglected, and I can show you some pictures of siblings, how they deal with death and dying. But we do this work without charge. We see all our patients without charge, but we get very, very beautiful gifts. And this little booklet that I received from one of the mothers is one of probably the most precious gift I ever received in all these years that I've worked with dying patients. And I wanted to read you some of these poems. This is written by a mother whose 3.5-year-old boy had leukemia, and I've seen them in counseling to help them to come to grips with it. And after a year, the mother and the father reached the stage of acceptance and was really at peace, accepting it not only here but here. And she gave me for my birthday a booklet with poems that she wrote. Each time she felt that she came to grips with something, she wrote a poem what she experienced at that time. I don't think this woman ever read my book. I don't think she knows about the stages of dying. I'm not sure about that. But every poem is one stage. And I'll read you a few of them because I think this tells people most what it's like to come to grips with death and dying, especially when it comes to a child. The first poem she writes is called A Fun Day at the Leukemia Clinic. You hear the paradox of the title already, A Fun Day at the Leukemia Clinic. A child near death I saw today, his smile too slow, his face too gray. His gaze not here but far away, and I wondered, tomorrow mine, this way. I hold my own and give him a kiss. His grin in return leaves a feeling of bliss. So I almost believe there is nothing amiss. Please, let him always stay just like this. He's warm and alive and eager to smile, jumping and hopping and running a mile, an innocent babe without cunning or guile. All I ask is to keep him just for a while. Who is to stay and who is to go? Until the last moment, who is to know? There is no rhyme or reason what this must be so, but I'm screaming inside, never mind, never know. This is what we would call a partial denial. She knows up here that's going to happen to her child, but inside, never mind, never know. She can't really believe it yet that this can happen to her own child. And then she does something very moving and very beautiful. I mentioned earlier that if you cannot accept your own death, your own finiteness, that except or short of going through a life of suffering, which means that in your lifetime you have gone many, many times through those stages. So when a terminal illness comes or death comes, you're no longer afraid. Like the cleaning woman who said, death is not a stranger to me like an old acquaintance. If you have not had the privilege of having a life of suffering, and I call that a life of privilege in a symbolical way, the next best way to come to peace with your own finiteness is to identify with people who suffer and go with them through the stages and accept their death. And each time you can do that, that will help you to come closer to its acceptance of your own death. This mother does exactly the same thing. She cannot accept her own child's death, but she somehow senses intuitively that if she could come to grips with Kenny's death, Kenny is a roommate of her little boy who's also dying of leukemia. If she could accept Kenny's death inside, that this might help her later on to face her own child's death. And so she's doing exactly that. She writes a poem to Kenny, who is not her own child, please die soon. He's 8 years old, though he looks much more. He has been kept too long in front of death's door. I wonder how long before he dies. He's a ghastly preview before our eyes. I think of my own and what I will do and what I can give when his hell he goes through. I'm scared and I cry. I don't want him to go, but damn it, if he must, let it not be so slow. I'm skipping a bit and read you the next poem after Kenny died. She writes a poem to Kenny, Goodbye with Love. You left us last night, and quickly so. I guess you knew it was time to go. Better than those who would have to stay for one more hour or another day. It was time to leave while you still could be, though physically bound, in spirit free. You still could smile and still could sing, still could do so many things. There are some battles that can't be won. The fight was hard, but now it's done. You fought so well and gave your best. And now, dear Kenny, it's time to rest. Do you feel the acceptance of Kenny's death? But that is not her own child yet. She tries it with a lot of other children. She goes through fantastic rage and anger. I'll read you just a few lines to give you a feeling of what parents go through. The song of the intern is an expression of her rage and anguish, which is displaced onto anybody who is touching her child now. I'm the intern, big and strong. Believe me, I can do no wrong. I do things quick, I do things fast. Who cares if things are done half? Tomorrow maybe I'll practice on you. Bone marrows, shots, and an IV or two. In a couple of years I'll really know how. You'll just have to bear with my clumsiness now. You get the feeling of the rage and the anger that will be displaced onto anybody now who touches her child. And it's very hard, not to feel insulted and not to react with anger. If you can accept this as an expression of this mother's anguish and get it off your chest, I would feel this way too. Then you can help this mother. And this woman has gone through a lot of rage and anger and destructiveness. And after weeks and weeks of this almost unbearable anger, she's now going through what I called earlier the preparatory grief, where she's going to look into the future of what it is going to be like when her own Jeffy is dead. And if she can do that before he dies, she might have a chance to really reach a genuine, authentic stage of acceptance. Her child's name is Jeff, and you have to know that to understand where she's doing it in this poem. The poem is called The Hospital Playroom. Come to the playroom and look inside. See all the toys of the children who have died. There is Beth Ann's doll and the book from Mary, a bat and a ball and a mitt from Larry. Kenny's crayons are used each day, and the coloring books belonged to Kay. Boxes of toys and boxes of joys, that's all that's left of the dead girls and boys. I wonder what of Jeffy's will give to this graveyard that said these children lived. His fire engine or the red old trike, a puzzle, a book, or his shiny new bike. It's supposed to be fun to come here and play with a sick little child made happy today. But my eyes and my heart from this place want to go. It's filled with the ghosts of the children we know. Did you hear it? Where she's beginning to think of what she's going to give to this children's playroom. Then after she goes through weeks and weeks really of a preparatory mourning and grief, she's now reaching the stage of acceptance, and that is very, very hard for people who have no belief in any form of life after death. This is a woman who has no religious beliefs or concepts, who doesn't believe in immortality. For her, death is total end, total nothingness. And you can appreciate how hard it is when you then have to face the death of your own child, when you have absolutely no concepts of anything afterwards. And so she writes a poem to her own little boy who is terminally ill, and the title of the poem is understandably, Where Are You Going, My Little One? You see the margin of hope in these first two lines of this poem. He's 3.5 years old when she writes this poem. And the poem is, I saw a boy on a bike go by. He was 10 years old and blue of eye, slender like you, with straight blonde hair, but hard as I looked, you were not there. A group of children playing ball, boys and girls, both big and small. I was restless inside and the panic grew, because tried as I might, I could not see you. You're not really them, my little son. You'll always be a special one. Here a short while, then gone somewhere. I could rest inside if I just knew where. Now you have to view again the peace bird as a symbol of acceptance. I glanced up at the clouds as they billowed by, floating free in a peaceful sky. Lovely and light, they had not a care. And finally, my son, I found you there. She writes then one more poem, and that is very typical of what could happen if people would really accept their own finiteness. If you can come to grips with your own destructiveness, and you can realize that you are a tiny little unimportant thing really, and in terms of the universe and of time, you're here a terribly short time. And if you could really accept that and face that, you would live a very different quality of life with very different values. And this mother writes now a very typical poem of what happens to people who have accepted that they're here and together only a very short time, but they really want to live every day more in depth and with more meaning, like a bit to live every day like it was the last one, but needless to say, still hoping for 1,000 more. And this is her poem now, and it is called very typical future shock, which means, in spite of all our preparation, if our child dies, it will still be a shock naturally. I cram it all in now, as much as I can, for today's tomorrow for our little man. Make memories now, and hold them fast, for the future is but a thing of the past. The feeling of panic is slow to leave. I've spent so much time getting ready to grieve. Why is he going? There's nothing last. The future should not be a thing of the past. But some songs are short and some are long. 4 years of perfection, but still a short song. But today he does sing, and he's lively and loud, and the future has become the present, the now. Once the mother reached the stage of acceptance, within 24 hours, the little boy started to talk about his dying. He immediately senses that Mommy can talk about it and it's okay to talk about it now. And he talks here about Kenny, who died before him, and later on he also mentions Beth Ann, who is a little girl who also died before him. And he says, Mommy, where did Kenny go? He was my friend and I liked him so. And Mother says, and he says, Kenny died? Who killed him, Mom? I wonder, was it a gun or a bomb? Do you remember the concept of death as a catastrophic weapon? And Mother says, oh, nobody killed him. He had been so sick that his body wouldn't work and he died very quick. And Jeffy replies, just like me, Mom, and Daddy, and you, and Dougie, and Grandpa, and Shadows too. Where was he, Mommy, when he got dead? Was he playing at home or somewhere in bed? This is his last unfinished business. Are you going to ship me to the hospital again, or do you allow me to die at home? Where was he, Mommy, when he got dead? Was he playing at home or somewhere in bed? I really liked Kenny, and I'll miss him a lot, but nothing bad happened. He did not get shot. He only did die like we all do someday. So long, Mommy, I'm going out to play. A few weeks after these poems were written, the little boy developed a pneumonia. He became very sick and he started to talk again about dying. And he said to his mother, I'm so sick now that I think this time I'm going to die. I think a year before the mother would have said, shut up, don't talk like this, you're going to get well. They always do that. But this time she was able to sit and hear him and listen to him, and she said to him, what do you think it's going to be like? And he thought for a while, and he said, I think what's going to happen is that you're going to take me in an ambulance from the hospital to the place where Beth Ann is. Not only is he very smart, he knows that he's going to be shipped to a hospital anyway, but the place where Beth Ann is the cemetery, and he doesn't have a word for it. And the mother said to him, is there anything else I should know about? And he thought for a while, and he said, yes, I think you better make sure and tell Dr. Ross that she puts the light on in the ambulance and makes the siren going very loud so that Beth Ann knows I'm coming. And I think this is one of the most beautiful and typical expressions of a child who has to face dying, whose parents give them no concept of heaven or any form of life after death. If they see that the parents are at peace, they not only come to peace with their own death, but they will be able to make their own heaven. And it's very beautiful. What this heaven consists of is a place where Beth Ann is waiting for him. And beautiful that he picks Beth Ann naturally, because Beth Ann is a child who has had leukemia, who knows what suffering means, and who has gone ahead for him. And all he asks of us, the healthy and the living, is that we make enough noise and we keep the lights on to notify Beth Ann of his coming. That is how beautiful and how peaceful it is when children die, and you can talk with them about it and don't shut them up. I love to work with young children, and the more you work with them, the less you can see death as a nightmare and as a catastrophic, destructive thing. Much more like the peace bird.
Teach me to die. Hold on to my hand. I have so many questions, things I don't understand.
If you would like a copy of today's program, please send your name and address along with 50 cents to cover the cost of postage and handling to United States Catholic Conference, 1011 First Avenue, New York, New York, 10022. That's United States Catholic Conference, 1011 First Avenue, New York, New York, 10022. This special program was produced in association with the Division for Film and Broadcasting of the United States Catholic Conference and was another film production of the NBC Religious Programs Unit. Your announcer is Jerry Damon.
Day after day, trade your fear of parting for the faith that knows no pain. Don't be afraid.